Welcome to another episode of Capital Kitchen. Today we're going to be making some pull-apart pepperoni bread. Now this stuff is incredibly easy to make, and I'm going to show you how to make it right now, step by step on Capital Kitchen. I don't normally do this, but because there's so few ingredients, I'm actually just going to go through each of them one by one right now because there's really only 6. It's crazy. So first, we're gonna be using bread. Now, when it comes to bread, what I have here is French bread. This stuff's really inexpensive. You could find it anywhere. This only cost me $1 for this whole loaf. You don't have to use French bread. You could use sourdough. You can make your own bread. You could use whatever you got. For our protein today, we're gonna be using Capital naturally smoked pepperoni. We're also gonna be using some cheese. This is just called pizza blend cheese. You could use any cheese you want. You could use mozzarella, you could use cheddar, you could use habanero, whatever. As long as whatever cheese you use is shredded so it melts nicely. For herbs, we're just gonna use a little bit of oregano, gives it that pizza taste. And then pretty simply, we're gonna use some butter and some garlic, okay? And that's it, that's all there is to this recipe. So let's get started. First, I'm gonna get a pan on the stove here, and we're gonna start melting our butter and our garlic together. Now, I'm doing it on the pan here just because it's easier for me to show you, but you could even do this in the microwave. So if you want the instructions for how best to do that in the microwave, we'll put that on our website for you at capitalfinemeats.ca/recipes. So we're gonna start with our butter on a pan over low heat, and we're just gonna melt this down. While that's melting, we're gonna chop up some garlic, okay? So we're gonna go over here to the cutting board, and we can use as much or as little as we want. I'm gonna start with half a head of garlic, so it's just about 4 cloves or so, and we'll take it from there. If I feel like I want a little more, maybe I'll add some. We're just gonna go over it a few times until everything's really small. And then we're gonna just take our garlic, okay? We're gonna scoop it up here nicely with the knife, just like that, and we're gonna drop it right in. And now we're just gonna go in with a few teaspoons here of some oregano. This is gonna give it that pizza twist. While we're waiting for the garlic butter, we're gonna get started with slicing our pepperoni. So today I'm gonna use about half of our pepperoni here. Okay, now this pepperoni, one thing that's important about it is you do have to peel it, okay? It's got a protective layer, okay? This is part of the smoking process. And so we're just gonna cut down as thin as we can. You don't have to be too precise. For those of you who maybe have the tool at home, you could use a slicer for something like this. And then I'm gonna show you with this little piece here what I'm gonna do to the rest of it. I just think it's a little easier to understand. So we're gonna kind of cut it into almost like a grid sort of pattern, because I wanna end up with chunks that are kind of like this. So what you're left with are some smaller pepperoni pieces that are gonna go nicely throughout our pull-apart bread. And then we've got some half moon shapes that are gonna go on top, and they're gonna look a little bit better for presentation. The bread, okay, here we go. I'm just gonna put this directly on the baking pan that we're gonna bake it in, and we're gonna cut it in a cross-hatch pattern. All that means is we're gonna cut it at a 45-degree angle one way, and when we get to the end, we're just gonna switch and cut it the opposite way. And we're gonna do that while trying to leave about 1/4 of an inch or so on the bottom of the bread, okay? So we don't wanna cut all the way through. We wanna just cut through about 80% of it. You can experiment with how wide you wanna cut this, okay? You can try going smaller, try going bigger. Now we're gonna come at it the other way. This bread knife is not very good. You can see what we end up with. Now, all of the bread is still intact, but we have this crosshatch pattern that we're gonna stuff with all of our pepperoni, our cheese, and it gives us tons of surface area to cover this thing in that garlic butter. We're gonna fill this thing with a base layer of cheese, and then we're gonna do some pepperoni, and then we're gonna do some more cheese, and we're just gonna go back and forth until it's full. I wanna make sure that none of these bread tops are getting buried, so anytime they do, I'm just gonna pull them out, okay? That's where all of our garlic butter is gonna go. We're gonna take some of the bigger pieces of pepperoni, and they're gonna kind of sit on top a little bit, like this. And now the last step, we're gonna take some of our garlic butter, and we're just gonna base this on top. And you can put as much or as little as you like. So I've got our oven preheated now to 375. We're just gonna pop our loaf in the oven and I'm gonna keep an eye on it. This could take 10 minutes, it could take 15 minutes. It really depends on your bread. It depends on how much you stuffed it. So what you're looking for is you're looking for melted cheese with a little bit of browning, and you're looking for toasted, not soggy bread. So here is our cheesy stuffed pepperoni pull-apart bread loaf. It's a bit of a mouthful. So what am I gonna call this? I'm gonna call this pull-apart stuffed. Okay, perfect. Now I got a little marinara sauce here to pair it with, but this is our finished product. Now I'm a little nervous to dig into this because it is a little bit messy. The best way to do it is just kind of ripping it and tearing it, and I'm gonna kind of ruin it. So I'm a little sad about that. But things like this are meant to be eaten. So let's give it a, see that? All that cheese comes with it. You got pepperoni, you got everything, and you can just dip that in your ranch or your marinara. I'm gonna have it just by itself. Let's give this a taste. Wow, I mean, come on. That is so good. And you can see what I'm talking about too. Look, the cheese held on to all those little pepperoni bits, so they're really stuck on there. So when you go and you dip, you give it a dip just like this. You got your marinara, your ranch, or whatever you want. This is incredible. It's perfect for sharing at potlucks or parties or anything, even to just like have with your family. That's awesome. It just blows me away to think of some of the hoops we jump through sometimes in the kitchen to have something that's impressive or delicious or whatever. And then it's easy to forget about the simple stuff like this. So this is just really amazing. I hope you guys give it a try. Let us know if you like this recipe in the comments. I want to thank you guys one last time. I've been your host, Alexander, and we'll see you next time.